The Opal. The Opal was a monthly journal that was printed from 1850 through 1860 at the Utica State Lunatic Asylum's Utica print shop. The Opal is an example of an inmate-generated publication produced by people confined to the Utica State Lunatic Asylum as insane. The modality of treatment for lunacy in mid-19th century American insane institutions, of which the Utica State Lunatic Asylum was one such institution, included the idea that labor was treatment. Inmates of the asylum were forced into labor and it was called treatment. In some situations it was called moral treatment. Asylum inmates worked on farms, or in the shops, or in support of the servants of the institutions. In southern institutions, which run on the labor of people enslaved, the forced labor as treatment was highlighted less and keeping the daily routine of a person enslaved was highlighted more for the benefit of the institution. In the situation of the Utica State Lunatic Asylum, it was the idea of its superintendent, Dr. Mary Brigham, to birth a communication tool, a journal, for the trade organization of the field of psychiatry he was helping to establish. Dr. Brigham called the journal the American Journal of Insanity. The American Journal of Insanity is today's American Journal of Psychiatry, published by the American Psychiatric Association. While forced into labor in the print shop, the inmates convinced the manager to allow them to create their own monthly, and it was named The Opal and was published from 1850 through 1860. The monthly journal was named The Opal after the precious gems. The idea was that inmates were like opals, because all were treasurable, even though no two were alike. The efforts of the Opalians, as the writers called themselves, spurred an inmate library that traded with other publications. The Opal had a subscribership of over 1,000 addresses. To be clear, the Opal was part of the economy of the institution. The Opal was at points included in the annual reporting of income of the institution to the New York State Legislature. In the second volume, the 1852 editor calls out to brother and sister lunatics with a reminder that someday people might go in for the enlargement of their personal liberties, but the editor would not dare to question the authorities. It cannot be understated, while the Opal was in some ways a vehicle for a voice for some of the inmates who were mostly locked up on the private wards of the Utica State Lunatic Asylum, the inmates were still inmates. The labor of the inmates of the Utica State Lunatic Asylum in the print shop was forced. No matter how wonderful and creative the product of the Opal may have been then, and for us now to understand and try to make sense of the institution from the perspective of inmates, even if filtered by the psychiatrists prior to publication, the Opal was still a product of a type of slavery. The institution, not inmates, were financially benefiting from the proceeds of the monthly publication. This work is abolitionist in nature and intends to make clear an analysis of the forced labor of inmates and the products they produced. The Opal creates a space in the academic literature for the long history of resistance by people psychiatrized. The Opal often gives insights into how the asylum system provided an institutional and structural design for enacting slavery. Within 20 years of the Utica State Lunatic Asylum being built, with the construction completed by the person who built one of the most infamous prisons there ever was, Sing Sing Prison, at the time, was beginning to be instituted. Under the 13th Amendment, the coordination of slavery as legal form of punishment for crimes duly convicted. The field of psychiatry removed the caveat for conviction of a supposed crime and instead relied on the assessment of mad doctors operating in silent tandem with the prison system. Under the 13th Amendment, as a legalized form of slavery, the economic realities of psychiatry and particularly court-ordered psychiatry, with great resources brought into the government and tremendous profits to the pharmaceutical companies, other industries, and the profession's trade organizations lobby for and protect, cannot be ignored or dismissed. In the words of the Opalians, who fancies to have a revolution here, this is mental American monster, the sprawl of American psychiatry. www.mentalamericanmonster.org